Hello and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I've decided that I'm going to do a little labour and delivery video of my last child, Jacob. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Claire. I have 4 children. I have a 15-year-old son, a 3-year-old little girl, a 2-year-old little girl and a almost 5-month-old baby. So yeah, I'm just going to obviously do Jacob's delivery story because it's like the most freshest in my mind. I cannot really remember Jaden's. Wait, I can actually remember it, but not as obviously as well as Jacob's. So I'm just going to kind of start off with my pregnancy with Jacob. I had the most horrendous pregnancy with him. I just, everything was painful. I always felt like further along than it actually was. So say I was 6 months, I just genuinely thought that I was like 9 months pregnant. It was weird. I always just felt so big. I was definitely the biggest I've ever been in my pregnancies with Jacob. And yeah, it was just horrible. Like I didn't really have any like proper health issues. I did need to inject myself every day because I was classed as a high risk because of my weight. So basically, yeah, that's what they said to me. So I had to like inject myself every day. I had to take iron tablets every day, but I am anemic anyway, even when I'm not pregnant. So that was quite bad. Severe heartburn, but I did have that with all my children, all my pregnancies. And yeah, I just felt really, really rough this pregnancy. And he was just so active in my stomach. Like I have never had that before. He moved constantly and it was to the point it was sore. It was actually like painful. And it was breech at one point and then he'd turn back round again. And I literally felt him turn. It was the most strangest feeling ever. So yeah, that was my pregnancy with him. When I got to like 35 weeks, I was like, I don't think I can do this for another 5 weeks, potentially 7 weeks if I go over. And then I decided at 36 weeks I was going to buy one of those like bouncing balls, like the pregnancy balls. And I literally lived on that for about I lived on that until I went into labour. It just relieves so much stress. So if you're pregnant and you're in pain, definitely recommend one of them. Also through my pregnancy I did have carpal tunnel, which is like when your hands go numb. And I had it with all my pregnancies, but with Jacob was definitely the worst. It was so severe. I didn't sleep. I have not probably had a full night's sleep since I was about 30 weeks pregnant because I was up every night. I just couldn't sleep in the bed. If my hands would be 10 times worse, I had to sleep on the couch, and then it was awful. And even to this day I still have a bit of it. So I don't know if I'm maybe need to get that little procedure you get. I think it's just like, I don't really know what they do, but apparently just relieves the tension. And it's horrible. It's probably one of the worst things I've ever had in my entire life. But obviously when I gave birth to him it calmed down a lot, so it was, thank goodness, because I was really scared that I was going to have it forever. And I was like to Sean, I said to my partner Sean, like, oh no, what if this is me forever? What if my hands are always going to be sore like this? Like, anyway, it didn't. It calmed down a lot. So if you've got it now, like, trust me, hopefully it will go away when you give birth. So let me just tell you a bit about my other children. With Jaden, I went 5 days late with him, went over it, went into natural labour with him. With Holly, I got induced at 40 plus 2 days with her, I'm sure, because of reduced movements. Again, I would have been over with her as well. With Millie, I had to get induced at 38 weeks. So I had gestational diabetes with her, so they encourage you to obviously get induced early just to save any problems happening. With Jacob, like I said, I always just felt so further along than I was, but I definitely wasn't further on than I was. It's just how this pregnancy made me feel. So I was 38 weeks, 38 plus 1. So we went to Costco one day and we walked around and I was like, this is horrendous. Like, Sean, I need to go home. I am just feel so rough. So we decided we would pop down to my mum's, and I was just kind of sitting there, and then like this feeling just came over me like a contraction. So if you gave birth, if you've been in labour, you'll know what that feels like. And it would just kind of go away and then it would come back, and I thought, is this it? Like, is this the start of it? But then I was like, no, I don't think so. And then it wasn't, to me it wasn't that sore, so I thought, is it just the Braxton Hicks? Mum was there, my sisters were there, and they were all like, oh my god, is this it, is this it? And I'm like, no, I'm definitely not. I'm only 38 weeks, like I'm never going to be the type of person that goes into labour early, so that was fine. It passed. It lasted for about 5 minutes if even, but it did feel quite like different compared to like Braxton Hicks I'd had throughout my pregnancy. But yeah, that was fine. Just went home, and I actually sat in, when I was in the car, I took a picture of myself, and I was like, is this going to be the last picture that I take before I have a baby? I didn't take the picture because I thought I looked good. I just thought I wanted to take a picture because I feel like this could be the last time. It was strange. I had that feeling anyway. So I went home, went to the toilet, and I had a show. If you know, you know. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, why have I had this? I'm sure I had a show with my first son, but I was like 5 days late with him when I had it. And so then I was googling like mum's net, and then I was like, is this a sign? Is this a sign? And then so many people were saying, oh, it's not a sign. I had mine, and then I didn't give birth for 2 weeks later, and people were saying, oh, I had mine and nothing happened. And I was like, oh no, like I was so gutted. And then I just thought, oh, it's fine. Nothing that I can do about it, out of my control. It was getting to about like 9 in the morning, and I was like, Sean, I think this is it, like this feels a bit weird. And he's like, we'll just start timing your contractions then. So it's maybe just Braxton Hicks again. It's like, so yeah. So as it got to about 12, my sister texted me and she's like, are you sure you're in labour? Because you don't seem like you're in that much bed, or something along those lines. And I was like, that's when I knew. I was like, this is labour. I was so offended. Got to about 12 o'clock and things were starting to ramp up, and it was starting to get sore. And I was timing them, and I was like, they were actually starting to get quite close together. And it was funny because I actually had an appointment the next day to go in and get induced, because they wanted me to get induced early because I was taking these injections, and basically they just wanted me to get induced early anyway. So I was getting induced, but it was so strange how I went into labour on my own before that. Obviously my mum was planning to come up. She was having to come up and watch the kids for me. We'd planned this anyway weeks ahead. But my mum was panicking because she has work, and she's like, oh my god, what am I going to do, blah, blah. And I was like, it's fine, you know how long labour takes. Even though all my labours have been pretty quick actually. Even Jaden, my first, it was only 12 hours, which I know you say 12 hours, but in hindsight I hear people have been in labour for like 3-4 days. Longest labour has actually been Millie, my third child. So it got to about 3 o'clock, and I'm sure she popped in. Did she pop in before work? No, she never. So it got to about 3 o'clock, and I was like, no mum, this is it. Like, but in my mind I'm still doubting myself. I'm thinking, am I just imagining this? Am I overreacting here? I still never felt like this is the real deal. It was strange. It was sore, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm gonna have a baby today. It just didn't feel like that. Hours went past. Sean's like, just want to go out a wee run in the car, so we went out and I ran in the car. So this was about 5 o'clock, and at that time I totally forgot. I actually had an appointment that day as well, so obviously I was to go in and get a sweep. So I was to get the sweep that day, and then the next day I was to get induced. So but I totally forgot all about this appointment. She phoned me, the doctor phoned me when I was in the car, and she's like, oh hi Claire, just wondering why you didn't turn up for your appointment. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I forgot, but I'm actually in labour right now. And she's like, oh my god, that's amazing, I'm so happy for you. Obviously keep in contact with us if obviously things start to slow down or whatever. You can still come in and get induced. And even when she said that, in that moment I'm like, please do not slow down, like this is it, I need to have this baby out of me. So yeah, we're in the car, and that's when I realised, I was like, this is it, this is the real deal. Because every like bump Sean went over in the car, even when he stopped and went into a shop, and I was like, please Sean, like please hurry up, like this is horrific, like this is so bad. I had Holly and Millie there just like mom, mom, mom. But I am one of those people, like when I'm in pain I don't scream or anything. I'm like pure, I just like hold it all in. I'm like that. So we got home, and then mom finished work at 6, so she came in, she popped in, and she's like, you don't really seem like you're that much in pain. I'll just go home just now and then phone me if it gets worse. So I phone me if it gets like every 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, that's fine, because I knew it was sore, but I was like, maybe because I'm like handling it quite well, I was like, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm only like 2 centimetres. There's no point in rushing to go in, is there, when you're only that. So she went home, I went in for a bath literally 5 minutes after she left, and it was like ramping up in the bath, like severe. So I just texted her and I was like, please mum, you have to come back. And she's like, okay, I'll come back. So she came back about 7, half 7, and they were just like every minute, literally every minute. and I was like, oh, this is it. And then I was scared, and I was like, oh my god. I still was scared to go to hospital in case there was only like 2 centimetres, because I don't know, I always have this fear of being like, oh, I don't want to be there. But then anyway, I just decided to leave about 7:30. I got there, sat in the waiting room for about 20 minutes, and I was just sitting with people who had appointments, so no one was in labour apart from me. And I was like, Sean, please, you need to go and get a nurse, you need to go and get somebody. So they called me after about 20 minutes. So they took me into like a ward of contracting in this waiting room. So they pulled the curtain round and put the little monitor thing on my stomach to obviously monitor baby's heart rate and obviously my heart rate. So she left me like that for about 15 minutes, and they were really ramping up. But again, I was just lying there, just like breathing, and I thought to myself, like, Sean, I need to go down to labour ward because I am in active labour. I need some sort of like gas and air. The nurse came back in and I said, could you please just examine me, because she's like, yeah, I was going to examine you anyway, don't worry. They're all just so relaxed, aren't they, midwives and like nurses and all that, which is good. That's what you need when you're like a wee bit scared, because being in labour is scary. Even if you've done it 10 times, 4 times, whatever, it's scary. To me it is anyway. Examined, she went, oh my goodness, she went, you're in active labour, you're 6 centimetres, let's take you down to the labour ward. And like your heart just sinks because you're scared but you're excited, you're in pain. So she took me round there, she wheeled me in a wheelchair, but I was like, it's fine, I can watch. Like, no, we'll be in a wheelchair, don't be silly. So she took me round, Sean had the bags, blah blah. We get into the room. This was actually coming up for about 9 o'clock. So then they gave me gas and air, and we had like a newly trained midwife. So she was just new to being a midwife, and she was lovely, she was young, she was so good. So she just kind of she was chatting to us about anything and everything, and it was actually the most relaxing labour I've ever had. Considering the pregnancy that I had, it was the most relaxing labour ever. I remember being in labour with Holly and Millie, and I don't remember getting a break from each contraction. It was strange, but this labour I did. So it got to about 9:30 and I was like, I feel like I need to push, like this is... So I'd only had gas in it at this point, and I was sitting on the chair. I feel like I kind of need to push, and she's like, okay, just listen to your body. She's like, would you want to pop up onto the bed? And I was like, okay. And she just put like a blanket around me. So this is the whole point, and this is what I have to tell you about the blanket though, because Sean was just like gabbing away. He's a gab, so kind of just take her mind off it. But then I was getting to the point and I was like, no, this is it. So I was pushing for about 5 minutes, but it was just like nobody, I don't even think the midwife knew I was pushing. Like I was just, you know, I was in my own little world. I gave out this like almighty scream. Like, it wasn't a scream, I was just shouting. And then I gave birth to Jacob. So this was he was born at 9:48, but the midwife never knew that I gave birth because the blanket was over, and I couldn't even speak, so I'm like that to Sean, like. So obviously I left the blanket on, there was baby Jacob. So yeah, he was born, he was 7, no he wasn't, that was Millie. He was 8 pounds 3, and yeah, it was just a crazy experience. So obviously when you give birth, naturally you should within, I think it's the hour or within the half an hour, I can't remember, you should give birth to your placenta pretty much straight away. So with all my kids I gave birth to my placenta straight away, but this was the part that I found horrible. Then she waited about a half an hour, and then it came to like the hour mark, I'm sure, and I still couldn't give birth to my placenta. So they tried everything, like as you can imagine, to get it out. And they said that if we can't get it out before the hour mark, you'll have to go down to surgery and get like a procedure, and basically they just pull it out. I don't know what they do, but so in my mind I'm like, oh my god, this is horrendous. So this was like a second labour to me, even when I think about it now. I'm like, so they had to eventually get the doctor in. I had like 2 midwives like pushing down on my stomach because my placenta was way up high. So usually it should go down when you're about to give birth, but mine had stayed up really high for some strange reason. Never had this from other kids. So yeah, I had 2 midwives like pushing on my stomach, like pushing. This was like a whole other labour. They're there for a good like 5 minutes, and I was like, oh my god, this is so bad. Even Sean's like, oh my god, you're alright, you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And then she got out, so that was it. So I was so relieved, honestly, that feeling. Because see, after I gave birth to Jacob, I still felt in pain, I still felt pressure, and she's like, that's because your placenta's in there still, like you have to get that out. Yeah, that was really horrible. That was a horrible experience, but at the same time it was like all done professionally, and everybody makes you feel good, and everybody was just so positive. And if you know what I mean, they were saying you were doing so well. Like, you didn't have, I honestly can't have a negative word to say about it, apart from it was just quite kind of painful, but again I had gas and air, and you could have like epidural and that if you wanted, but I just kind of ran out of time for all that. So yeah, that was my little delivery story of baby Jacob. He made this very, very fast arrival to the world. Yeah, and that just sums him up really the way he is now, because he's just a bit like, I don't know, it's just funny. After I gave birth, the nurses always ask if you want a toast or anything to eat, so I had some toast, and Sean had bought chocolate this time because my last labours I always forgot to take snacks, so we had some chocolate. And yeah, just decided to, obviously they let you stay in the labour room for as long as you need, so we were in there for about an hour. Such a different experience so when you've got other kids at home, because the last time we did only have Millie, no we didn't, we only had Holly and Jaden, and Sean's mum and dad watched him, and it was just like so relaxing. But obviously this time having like Millie, who obviously needs me, or Sean, so Sean had to, well, we left about an hour after Jacob was born. I was still in the labour room, and we were just kind of like, I was just sitting chilling, and then they eventually took me up to the labour ward. So I gave birth to Jacob at night, and this is the first time I've ever gave birth at night, so I just managed, they just kept me in overnight. So through the night Jacob was quite like noisy, making a lot of like groaning sounds, and just quite a noisy baby, and he kept being sick all the time. But I'm not even just talking about that, but it's like he was like projectile vomiting, you know, you get like those little plastic beds that they kind of sleep in. I felt like I was sick all over it, but I didn't think too much about it, because it just told me that when a baby's born so fast that can happen, a lot of mucus and things like that, and I remember that from having Holly, so I didn't worry too much about it. The only thing I did think was he was quite loud, but I thought, is he just a bit restless, you know, he was born so fast. But a nurse came in to me, and she does all the checks like every 4 or 6 hours, I can't remember, so she came in and she's like, has he been making that noise all night? And I was like, yeah, and she's checked him over, and she said, I'm just going to take him with me just now. I'm going to take him and just check him outside there, and can maybe eye on him for half an hour. So she took him out, and in that time my heart just sank, and I was so worried, even though I don't know why, I'm just an overthinker, and I was like, oh my god, like something's going to happen to him here, like, and I've just ignored him. Then she brought him back to me, and she says his heart rate's fine, everything seems fine, but I'll get the doctor to check on him anyway. So a few hours later the doctor came in, she checked him all over, she couldn't find anything wrong. She says his heart rate's fine, he's breathing fine, everything seems fine. He's just obviously a noisy baby. You get them, and you know that literally sums him up. He is the noisiest baby I've ever had, honestly. So yeah, she checked them all over, and he was absolutely fine. So then I was hoping to get out. I was just desperate to get home at this point, because I just like my own home comforts, get settled. So obviously I was in there. I got took up to the labour ward about 11 at night, so I thought that I would have got home the next day quite early, or even lunchtime, because that's what they told me. So somebody came round and checked us both about 8 in the morning and said, oh yeah, hopefully you get out today, but obviously you have to wait for the doctors, and the doctors come on at different times, and then they go around and check all the babies and make sure that they're obviously safe to go home, check them from basically head to toe, make sure everything's fine. I got to about 2 or 3 and nobody's been round, so I just asked them, I was like, is anyone coming round? Do you think I'll get home? They're like, yeah, don't worry, doctor's going to come round and you'll get home. Blah blah blah. But then the hours just kept going past. So I didn't obviously want to annoy them, because they've got enough to deal with. So it got to about 6 or 7 at night, and I kind of just was ready. I was organised to go home. I knew that Holly and Millie needed me, and they said, yeah, hopefully the doctor will be round. I'm really, really sorry, but they forgot about you. And I was like, because all the other people in the ward had either just had a baby or had a section or whatever, were in longer than me, so she forgot about me. But again, these things happen, so I didn't mind. So she eventually got the doctor round. So this was coming up to about 8 o'clock at night. So he eventually came round, and they obviously checked Jacob from head to toe, checked him, he was all fine, fit to go, and then we headed home. And it was just amazing to get home and get all settled, and the girls were so happy, Jaden was so happy to meet their new baby brother. And yeah, just started off our life as a family of 6. I can't believe it. I have 4 children. That's been my little labour and delivery story. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I used to love watching these kind of videos when I was pregnant. I just find them so fascinating, just to think, oh, I wonder what like my labour is going to be, and whoever is pregnant, I just honestly hope that you have a nice, safe and relaxed and labour, and just listen to your body, and yeah, and just try not to worry, because everything is going to be alright. Enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you have already subscribed, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.